Chapter 6. Solitary Paths. Months later, Mia had moved into her own apartment. The space was small but felt infinitely larger than the place she'd shared with Alex. It was hers, a blank canvas on which to paint a new life. She threw herself into her work at the advertising agency, volunteering for extra projects, staying late, and immersing herself in the creative process. It was a welcome distraction from the memories that still lingered, ghosts in the corners of her mind. She reconnected with friends, making time for dinners and movie nights, activities that had fallen by the wayside during her relationship with Alex. She remembered all the things she had wanted to do, but didn't because Alex wasn't interested. She would always defer to his interests, and now she was prioritizing herself. Alex, on the other hand, had become a recluse. The initial thrill of freedom he imagined had quickly dissolved into a gnawing loneliness. He saw Sarah a few times after Mia left, but the spark was gone. The intellectual connection he'd craved felt hollow without the shared history and deep intimacy he'd once had with Mia. He ended things with Sarah, realizing that she had been a symptom of his discontent, not a solution. He spent most of his time alone in their apartment, now feeling cavernous and empty without Mia's presence. The silence was deafening, broken only by the echo of his own regrets. Mia, seeking a way to heal from the emotional wounds, decided to attend a weekend meditation retreat in the mountains. She'd never considered herself a particularly spiritual person, but Chloe had suggested it, and she was desperate for a change. The retreat was held in a secluded cabin, surrounded by towering pines and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream. She spent her days in silent contemplation, practicing mindfulness and learning to quiet the incessant chatter of her mind. She found solace in the stillness, a sense of peace she hadn't felt since before the whispers of doubt had crept into her relationship with Alex. She realized that she had been so busy thinking of Alex, she had neglected her own well-being and had been so busy trying to be the perfect partner that she had lost her own identity. The retreat helped her to reconnect with herself, to rediscover her own passions and desires. Alex, in a moment of weakness, tried to call Mia again. He stared at her name on his phone, his finger hovering over the call button. He longed to hear her voice, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. But he knew it was futile. She had made it clear that she wanted nothing to do with him. He sent a text message instead, a simple, "I miss you." He waited for a response, his heart pounding in his chest, but none came. He knew she was right not to respond, but he couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The contrast between Mia's outward strength and independence and Alex's inner turmoil and growing isolation was stark. Mia's apartment was becoming a reflection of her newfound spirit. She'd painted the walls a vibrant shade of turquoise, hung colorful artwork, and filled the space with plants. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the cheerful decor. In contrast, Alex's apartment remained shrouded in darkness. The curtains were always drawn, the furniture untouched, as if frozen in time. He existed in a perpetual state of twilight, haunted by the ghosts of his past. He was emotionally paralyzed and couldn't seem to move forward. Driven by a desire to find meaning and purpose in her life, Mia started volunteering at a women's shelter. She'd always been empathetic and compassionate, but her own experience with betrayal had deepened her understanding of pain and resilience. She spent her evenings listening to the stories of women who had experienced abuse, abandonment, and hardship. She offered them support, encouragement, and a safe space to heal. She found a sense of fulfillment in helping others, a feeling that had been missing from her life for far too long. It gave her a renewed sense of purpose and helped her to heal her own wounds by witnessing the strength and resilience of others. She admired the women at the shelter and their ability to move on and not let their circumstances define them. One evening while volunteering, Mia met a woman named Sarah. Sarah was recently divorced and was struggling to rebuild her life. Mia empathized with Sarah, and they quickly became friends. They bonded over their shared experiences, and Mia found comfort in Sarah's friendship. Sarah encouraged Mia to pursue her dreams and to never give up on love. Mia realized that she was not alone and that there were other people who understood what she was going through. She learned from Sarah that it was okay to be vulnerable and that it was important to surround herself with people who loved and supported her. Alex tried going to bars, thinking that meeting someone new might alleviate his loneliness. But every woman he met seemed to pale in comparison to Mia. He found himself constantly comparing them to her, noticing their flaws, and longing for her warmth, her intelligence, her laugh, and her compassion. He realized that he had taken her for granted and that he had lost something truly special. He had thought the grass was greener on the other side, but the reality was that he had been standing in a beautiful garden and had chosen to wander into a barren wasteland. He now understood that true happiness wasn't about chasing fleeting desires, but about appreciating what you already have. Mia, on the other hand, was finally embracing her own identity. She had spent so long trying to be the person she thought Alex wanted her to be that she had lost sight of who she truly was. Now, she was rediscovering her passions, her interests, and her values. She started taking painting classes, something she had always wanted to do but had never had the time for. She joined a book club where she met a group of intelligent and inspiring women. She traveled to new places, exploring different cultures and expanding her horizons. She was finally living life on her own terms, and she was happier than she had ever been. Alex felt the weight of his actions pressing down on him. He had destroyed the most beautiful thing in his life, and he didn't know how to fix it. He knew he couldn't undo the past, but he desperately wanted to find a way to make amends. He wanted to show Mia that he had changed, that he had learned from his mistakes, and that he was worthy of her forgiveness. But he also knew that it was up to her to decide whether or not to give him another chance. He would have to live with the consequences of his actions, and he knew that he deserved to be alone. He was a fool to have let Mia go, and he would never forgive himself for it.